Hello everyone, welcome to first ever Laravel Pune Video Podcast. I am your host Jigar Dhulla, a Laravel developer, and in this episode we have Kedar, a React developer, and Amitav, a Laravel expert who is taking on a new challenge. He will walk Kedar through the process of building CRUD application in Laravel from scratch. So, whether you are a seasoned developer or just starting out, this episode is for you. Join us for an informative session as Amitav expertly guides Kedar through the fundamentals of this powerful PHP framework. And I will be here to facilitate the discussion and provide additional thoughts. So sit back and relax and get ready to immerse yourself in this Laravel Pune video podcast. Over to you, Amitav.
Okay, so we start with what the bootcamp is and why we are trying to do this. As I said, Laravel Bootcamp allows you to kind of get started, understand the framework, and in the end, we will have a small little application called Chirp where you are replicating literally the Twitter thing where you are able to tweet, you are able to edit it and delete it. And while we do this, the whole idea is that we will cover quite a few core concepts of the framework, and you will understand how certain aspects of the front end, back end in Laravel works. The Chirp application or the bootcamp has two different journeys. One is a blade view where it is almost like you have a server side rendered page. You have PHP, the controller calls the view, and a PHP template is being rendered and sent back. And we have a second one which is through inertia. And the only difference between blade and inertia is that in inertia you have the ability to either use Vue.js or React.js, which allows you to use a front end library of your own choice out of the two. In this particular one, we will shy away from the JavaScript and rather focus on Blade and go with it. Okay.
I have
But
a
yeah,
doubt, Amitav. So,
sure.
can we make single page applications using Blade?
No,
Or
you
it would
can't
be.
make single page applications with Blade. For that, you will need inertia
Hmm,
because that is where you will get the JavaScript
hmm,
benefits.
hmm.
Otherwise,
Understood.
there are certain hacks which are like turbo links and all those things. But yeah,
Hmm,
they have their own sweet
hmm.
problems to deal with.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so let's start the journey. The documentation is, if you see, very clearly mentioning the different steps that we are going to do. We are first going to install Laravel, then we will be writing code around the creation of the chirps, editing, deleting, and then we have notification and events. We can go on to that topic briefly, but notification and events is quite big in its own paradigm, so we might not be able to cover it in this particular video. Let's see how things go. Okay, so I'll go to installation, and Laravel framework allows you multiple ways to get started. The traditional way is where we assume that you have Apache or Nginx as your web server, you have PHP installed on your machine, and you have a database like MySQL or Postgres, which is up and running, right? Then you can use Composer, which is the PHP's package manager, to install Laravel and get started. That is point number one. I mean, the way, first way of doing things. The second is the Docker based thing. There was Valet, but Valet also in the end will install PHP, Apache, and MySQL. But yeah, the other latest trend is you use Docker, and PHP allows you to use Docker through a wrapper service called Sail. And what Sails does is it has its own pre-configured Docker configurations, the YML files, which will help you get up and running. Now, because I have everything on my machine. To be very precise, I have PHP, which is on version 8.1. I have MySQL and I have Apache. So I will be going through this. Obviously, I have Composer as well. Okay. Um, Most of the commands I'll just copy paste because everything is pretty well documented. But obviously, we will go through each and every line of code so that you understand what is happening. Now, I just did a Composer install, and what it typically does is, like, if you're familiar with the npm package manager as well, it will start downloading all the dependencies which Laravel has, Gazelle, a lot of them. And with that, if I go to chirp, let me show it like this. This is our folder structure. Okay, we have quite a few things. Now let me open it up in my code editor. All right, so we have our folder structure in the code editor as well. If you so Laravel has quite a few things out of the box. Like, we have resources where I would say the view files, JavaScript, CSS, all these kind of things are put in. We have vendor folder, which is the folder where Composer will put all its packages. We have a tests folder where obviously we write our unit tests and integration tests over here. Storage is, like, there are multiple things which are getting stored over here. Some cache files, log files, all those things go here. And obviously this is something which we don't interact too often with it. Routes is where Laravel has all its route entries defined. There are four. There's the API based routes, which goes in the api.php. We have web, we have channels and consoles, which are different. This is the entry point inside public. We have database, where we have our factories, migrations, and seeders. Migrations are basically a way for us to create database tables and all those things. Factories and seeders are more towards populating the data and all those kind of things. We will go into that in a bit. Configuration files, as the name suggests, controlling multiple aspects of the application. Bootstrap is one more folder where Laravel put a lot of cache files and stuff like that. And app is the main folder where our code will reside. Okay, we have console, any kind of commands go into here. Exceptions, if we put any custom exceptions. HTTP is where our controllers, middlewares go into. And then we have models, where all our database table related models come into picture. Providers, Laravel has a lot of service providers, and these are added here. Yeah, so that's about it in terms of the folder structure. And now let's see how we go ahead. Okay, so we
Can
have,
I interrupt you in between?
yeah,
So can you go back to the folder structure?
yeah,
So just one major difference between storage and Bootstrap directory is that Bootstrap is for Laravel framework related data itself. Framework
right,
related data. Usually we don't have to go over there, but storage will have application related data. Meaning, let's say if someone is uploading something or anything, the application, if the application generates data, chances are that it will go over there only and not put. So framework data and
goes
framework
into
data is
Bootstrap.
Bootstrap
Yeah,
and the application data is for storage. Yeah,
storage. Yeah,
that is one clarification that I wanted to give. Yeah, you
right.
can
Yeah,
continue.
all right. So yes, the Docker installation we will skip. We need a database, and for now, I will use an SQLite database. We can use MySQL, but I think for the demo purpose, that's fine. Typically, what I do is I will see what is the name of the database which Laravel expects, which is inside the config folder. If we go to database.php, I will see that there's a connection called SQLite, and I have this file name. So we can copy this, and inside database, I can create a new file called database.sqlite. With this, we just need to make one more change, which is, this is the env file, by the way. This tells Laravel about a lot of configurations. And right now, as the document said, our DB connection will be SQLite in our .env file. Okay. Now we'll skip the installation via Docker, and we will come to install Laravel Breeze. Now, before we do that, I'll quickly show you that if we now run PHP artisan serve, the application will start running on localhost port 8000. And this is how the Laravel's welcome screen will look. And what the Bootcamp says is, now we will install a authentication package. Breeze is, I mean, in Laravel's ecosystem, you get a lot of goodies, and Breeze is just one of them, where things like registration, login, user profile, forgot password, and all those things are taken care of. You don't need to worry about writing or developing those piece of code, because it is already there for you to consume. So I'll open up a new terminal. Okay, it's smaller, so I'll just continue over here. Yeah. It's a dev dependency, which means this should ideally not go into production, and it's very similar to npm.js, if you are aware of. And yeah, with just this done, and if I run this command, which is breeze install blade, which is how we are going to use the authentication mechanism, it will install the node modules and try to build the final version of all the assets.
So Breeze is a starter kit, correct?
Sorry?
Breeze is a starter kit.
Yes, Breeze is how Laravel puts it, as a starter kit. There are multiple ones. Breeze is one of the simplest one, which is not very opinionated. Then you have Jetstreams and all those kind of things. Okay, so we can see that it did some magic, and it has published certain files in our public build assets folder. And now,
Amitav, I have one doubt.
yes,
So the last command that you ran on the terminal was breeze install blade.
yes,
So breeze is for managing your authentication, and blade
yeah.
is for doing all the SSR apps. So how are two related?
Because Breeze comes with multiple versions of front end. Okay, it has a JavaScript version as well as the Blade version. So what is happening is, I think I should be able to, yeah. Basically, I am telling Breeze that you install Breeze with the version which is the Blade version.
Oh, understood. Got it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
So now if you see, our application has these two links. One is the login and the second one is register. Basically, this came up automatically because we now have Breeze installed. We can even do npm run dev, but I don't think we are going to edit the JavaScript file. So far we are good. But yeah, finally, one another terminal command which we need to run is php artisan migrate. Now, what is this? I'll show you first one folder, which is databases migrations. So we have three files over here. One of them is users table. Okay, if you see, there is some code which says schema create users, which basically means that we are going to create a table called user. We will have a column called name, email, which is of type unique, email verified at, password, remember token, and timestamps. Okay, and this is how a typical migration file will look in Laravel. Migration files which are responsible to create tables and even add columns to your databases. The
Was
versioning,
this generated by Breeze when we installed it?
no, these four migration files comes out of the box with Laravel.
Okay.
Yeah, Breeze hasn't created any migration as of now.
Hmm.
Okay.
Uh, oh, hold a second. So you understood what migration is, right?
Yeah,
Database
I do.
migration.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So now, as I was mentioning, we will run a command called PHP artisan migrate, and we can see what that basically did is it ran all the migrations, and now we will have those tables in our SQLite database.
Hmm.
So now I can actually register as a user because I have a database. So let's try to do that. My passwords are correct. And yes, I'm logged in. As I
Hmm.
said, Breeze does quite a few things. For example, I have a profile to manage automatically. I can change my password. I can delete my account. I can change my email ID and do some other funky stuff. Okay.
Hmm.
And obviously, log out and log in is possible. So, this is what Breeze will give you. You
Hmm.
have saved a lot of time, and we have this in place. And that basically concludes the first part of the bootcamp, which is installation. Okay. So, any questions so far? Anything which you would like to ask?
It's pretty clear so far.
Okay. So then maybe we can start with creating some chirps for in our application.
Yep.
Right. Now, as I said, to create anything, we will obviously need the database that we already have. We need a
Hmm.
model, migration, and controllers. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, maybe I'll not read it out, but what when we first try to do that, if you see, Laravel gives us a PHP artisan command, which is PHP artisan make model, and there are certain parameters. What I'm trying to say through this command is Laravel make a model, and the M is a migration. So I need a migration. The C is a controller. I need a controller as well. And the controller should be a resourceful controller. So all the 7 methods which are typically required in the resource controller will be available to you. And this chirp is the name of the model. Okay, so I'll just type it out again. PHP artisan make model. I need a migration. I need a controller, and the controller should be of type resource. And then I name my model. On executing that command, you will see we have few files that got created. Inside the app models folder, I have chirp.php. Inside the database migrations, I have this file, which is create chirps table. We will see that, look into that. And we have app HTTP controllers, chirp controller. So app models, chirp. This is our model file. It extends the model class, and right now it is pretty much empty. We will put things in. We saw there was a migration file which got created, which is this. It says create a schema, the table name should be chirps, and a migration by default gives us 2 fields. One is ID, and the second one is a combination of 2 columns called created at and updated at, that we call as timestamps. Okay, so the database will automatically have those 2 things. And we had the third file, which is inside our HTTP controllers, we have chirp controller. And inside the chirp controller, we can see all the RESTful methods. We have index, we have create, we have store, show, edit, update, destroy. All right. Now, moving on, what are the
Amitav, could you give like a quick rundown of all those methods?
sure. The index is again an interesting thing. a lot of the files which are generated by Laravel, right? They come with beautiful documentation. So because this is one very unique thing about Laravel, Taylor and the team has spent a lot of time writing things so that the onboarding is very easy. So this, as the comment says, display a list of resources. If it is chirps, when we go to a page where I am able to see a list of chirps, this index method will get called. Okay, we will see how that is done, but yeah, that is the responsibility of that particular method. Then we have create, which is showing the form for creating a new resource. Okay, this is like if there is a dedicated page for it. Stores a new created resource. This is where the actual post request is being handled. Okay, and that's the reason you will see that the request object is available to us. Okay. Show function is when we are looking at a specific chirp. Like I have chirp/1, chirp/2, where I'm mentioning the ID. That's where this particular method will come into picture. Edit is to show a form for the editing of that resource. Update is again the method where the actual updation is happening. That's why we have the resource class again over here and the model as well. And last is the destroy. Okay.
Yep. Understood.
Okay. Now we have our model, we have our migration, we have our controller, but so far the application will not understand what to do with all those three files. We need a route, we need an entry point. So that's where the routing will come in. And as we saw initially, our routes folder has all the things. Okay, our current application has a /route or the root route. We have a dashboard and we have the profiles. These are coming from the skeleton or the breeze which we installed. Now we will add our own route over here. So I'll copy quite a few things in here. Because we have a resource controller, like I could have, I mean, there are two ways to define routes. One is the manual way where actually it's already written, which is it's a get route. The URL will be /profile, and I have defined it saying that you call the profile controllers edit method. That is the way of defining things, and we have the ability to name a particular route. But if we have a resource controller, there's an easy way to just copy this, say resource, route resource, route resource. Okay. And this is the entry point or the prefix to all the routes inside that particular thing. Like, because this is chirps, so we have chirps as the /route, then the put request for edit, those kind of things. Okay. And I just mentioned the controller that all the resource routes will be handled by this controller. Now we have mentioned Laravel that all the URLs which are for the resource chirps should go to the chirp controller, because this is the class which will handle it. But let's just assume when we created this controller, we have all these 7 REST methods written down over here, right? We don't want anyone to go to the delete request because we haven't implemented. So what Laravel allows us to do is it has a method called only. And as the name suggests, what we are doing is allowing only the indexed and the store route. Okay, so any user, if they go to the delete method or the edit method, it will not allow you to do them. And there is one more method which we need to add, which is the middleware. So middleware is basically when your request is coming to the application, right, before it hits the controller, it goes to the middleware. And in here, we are checking whether the user is authenticated or not. So it needs to be logged in, and that the user should be verified as well, because there is a flow where we can say that users can be registered, but they need to verify their email before they are able to access the application. So we can add both of them. However, I wonder if my registration will create a problem. We will see, because I haven't verified my account, so I don't know. But yeah, this is done. Now, Laravel gives us one nice utility on the terminal. Called PHP Artisan Route List, which gives me the entire list of routes right now available in the application. So if you see inside the chirps section, we have only two URLs. It is not showing the edit, view, destroy, and those kind of things, because these are the only two valid URLs Laravel found for chirps. If I remove the only, just for the demo, if I run that again, you will see there are a lot more APIs or URLs which the route list is now showing. Okay, let me get that back. Moving on. Now they are saying we need to add some code inside our controller. Okay, so right now it is just returning a hello world, and we will do it just so that we are generally in sync with that. It was in the index method, right? So return response hello world, and we will define the response type, which is response HTTP, illuminate HTTP response. So what basically we are doing is, when someone is hitting the chirp route, we'll get a hello world. Let's see.
Amitav, when you were giving the response as the type to that method, in the autocomplete there were many responses. Like, what is the difference between the multiple response types that we have?
You're talking about this,
Yeah.
right? So as I mentioned, right, Laravel is using a lot of packages. Okay,
Hmm.
and if you see, quite a few package out of them have a response class. For
Hmm.
example, Spatty Flare client has a HTTP response class. There is Guzzle, who has a response class. But the
Hmm.
one which we are interested is the Illuminate HTTP. Illuminate is the namespace of all the Laravel packages. So it is easy for us to understand. And how I know that this is the one? Well, if you look at the documentation also, they have mentioned it. Use Illuminate HTTP response.
Okay.
Okay.
Understood.
Now, what mistake have I made to get a 404? Let me see. The S is missing. All right. So we have a hello world. Nothing too fancy, but obviously, so far, what we understand is the request in a very, from a very ground up, the request will hit index.php. Laravel boots up. There is some magic happening. Then Laravel will look in the routes file whether the route matches anything which we have over here, or any other routes file. Okay. Then, if it finds that there is a route matching to it, it will try to understand which method will be executed. And it found that because it's a RESTful controller, it's an index method. So this method was called, and we finally got a response. The entire life cycle in a very small way. Okay. Now,
Amitav, where would we assign the other parts of response, such as the status code and everything? Yeah.
okay, great question. So response by default, if you see, this method accepts content, and
Hmm.
it has a default status code of 200,
Hmm.
and it allows me to add headers.
Hmm.
Okay, which basically means if I have an API, and if
Hmm.
it is a post request, I can do a 201, which will mean
Hmm.
created. So I can do all kinds of things. If it's a 400, I can add that. So basically the second argument is your status code,
Hmm.
but by default response gives a 200.
Okay.
Okay. Now there is one thing interesting which I would like you to know, which is, in Laravel there is an interesting way where if you are making a call through the browser, right, it will detect that and it will show you a HTTP request. But if the same controller is called with a header where we are saying that we want an JSON response, it will return a JSON kind of a response as well. Unless and until it's a view which we are returning, it will, if there is data, it will convert it into a JSON response as well. That's a smart which Laravel does.
So
Okay.
you're talking about accept encoding header, right?
Accept encoding, yeah. Accept, that is application
Slash
slash
JSON.
JSON, yeah. That particular thing, if it is there in the header, right, it will return a JSON response. Okay. Now, so as I said, not impressed, right? We are just returning a string. How do we implement the view part of it? Because we had the controller, we haven't seen the model, but if we want a view, what we can do is we will return a view response now. We will go to our resources folder and the view folder over here, which I said is housing all the layout related stuff. Are they talking about any particular folder? Yes, inside chirps index. So I'll first create chirps slash index dot blade dot php. Right. This is one thing, and I'll just add, oops, hello. Right. This is one view file, and what we will do is, instead of returning the response, we will call a method called view, and I'll do chirps.index. I'll talk about it, what is happening. And the view is illuminate view, if I'm not wrong. Let's quickly check that. Yes, illuminate view, which is correct. So what is happening? As I said, we have a method called view. The first argument is the location inside the resource folder where we can find a particular view. So chirps is the folder. So inside the view we have chirps dot index, means we are looking for a file called index inside the chirps folder. The blade.php is automatically being assumed by Laravel. Right now, what will happen? Let's try and refresh. We can see that the hello world and how are you is now presented. Why? Because now we are sending some HTML data instead of a normal response. Okay.
Understood.
Moving along. Now we can do some nice layouting thing, and that's why I think they said I need to run the npm run dev, because I'm doing some view level thing. Npm run dev is required because we have Tailwind, and we are going to add some markup over here. So yeah.
Does Tailwind come pre-configured with normal scaffolding of a Laravel application?
Laravel. Okay, this is. Did Breeze install Tailwind, or is it Laravel that comes by default with Tailwind? Jigar, do you know that? Or I can do a composer install and later on check that.
I have no idea.
Okay. Maybe while we are at it, composer, create, check Laravel.
Because I don't remember us passing any kind of flag to this composer command to
I
install
think
Tailwind.
Breeze is the one who
Yeah.
has done it, but I'll just confirm. What was it? Tailwind. Yeah. it doesn't come with a Tailwind configuration. It has Vite, but yeah, the Tailwind was added by Breeze package. Okay. Now what do we have over here? Right. We have a form. How did that happen? Basically, this blade layout is saying that inside the app layout, which is basically this. Okay. Um, I'll have to go a little deep into the blade system so that you just about understand what is happening. So, uh, a lot of pages will inherit a layout, like you have the top navigation, you have a footer, you have a sidebar, right? And obviously we don't replicate it on every view, so we create a layout. This one is called app.blade.php, and what will happen is these slots are replaced with the app layout thing. Okay, it is very similar to in React also, when you have the components and uh, you have a layout component and then the other components are rendered inside it, a very similar structure, so that we don't repeat the markup. And that's how on the chirps page I got this navigation, which is originally part of the blade thing, right? And I have the form. So we have a form tag, the method is post, and action over here is a method being called route, and we are calling the chirps.store method. This is why we name our routes, because if you see in web.php, okay, sorry, it's a resource controller, but if you see, we have names over here, right? Like profile.edit, profile.update. So the idea is, even if my resource URL change at some point, profile, my test, right? The references will not change, and hence I don't need to make any code level changes even though I'm changing my URL. That's one major advantage why we mention the name of the route. We have a CSRF token, so that when the form is created, there will be a token added to that, which is, when submitted, it is validated, because there is a session based validation which is happening, so that no one can hijack your form and start doing some kind of a DDoS attack or a mass submission kind of a thing. Then we have a text area, a way to show validation error messages. We will look into that. And then we have a chirp button, which is our black chirp button. Okay. This interesting thing, underscore underscore, is for translation. Laravel comes with default translation. A little off topic thing, but just so that you know, it has everything set up for you to create resource files which can be used for different languages. Okay. Moving along.
All the HTML tags, I mean the markup tags, starting with X, so are they part of the Blade ecosystem?
These are part of, these are components which are available with the Breeze package that we have installed.
Okay.
But no one is stopping us from, let's just say, changing it to a button and just add this class over here. I think it should just work. I'm just also checking that. I haven't tried this, so I'm kind of doing it on the fly. Okay, it's a little different, but it will still do the form submit. So the basic idea is, yes, any HTML tag will work. I think there is some additional styling. The primary, I think, is attached to it, so that's why the exact look and feel was not there.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So we have this form. Navigation menu, we need to add that chirp because it's only showing the dashboard. So we'll quickly add that. What is needed is I copy this and I have a navigation.blade.php file, which is inside our resources, layouts, navigation blade.php. In here, I'll add it over here. And then I refresh, chirps is visible. And if you see even the basic stuff like active, if request route is chirps.index, it will add the active class. So those kind of things are also taken care of. Right? And yeah, there's a separate menu for mobile, so you'll need to add that also, just to make it complete. Settings drop down, where is it? Mobile, yeah. Oops, where is my console? Yeah, right. So we have our chirps over here. That's how it is controlled. Okay, moving along. Now comes the interesting part, which is saving the chirp. How do we do that? So we have a form. We saw that we created that form in the Blade file. Now we need to handle the store method. So let's go inside our controller. We have our store method. We are injecting the request class, and we are getting the request object over here. So what is it doing? We'll first copy this piece of code. With the request, we have a method called validate. That validate takes an array where we have multiple rules that we can add. And this is the key, which is the name of the field, and these are the rules. Laravel's documentation will give you a very clear idea of how many validation rules are there. What we are saying over here is that the message field is required. It needs to be a string, and it can be maximum 255 characters. When this method is executed with these rules, if the data is validated, it will return that, and we are capturing it in this particular variable.
So are we capturing a Boolean value such as true or false, or what's
No.
the shape of the validated variable?
It's an array. It's an array of all the fields which got validated. Okay. And I know I'm going a little deep, but I'll tell you why that is important. This is the array of the post data which is coming. Can you see we have a token? Why? Because we had a CSRF field and we have the message. Now, honestly speaking, I don't need the token while I'm making a database entry, right? So if this request dump I do over here with the validated variable, can you see the token is gone? So it's a security aspect as well, where what we are saying is when we are doing a database level insert, we are only interested in the fields which are validated, right? So a front end can send me 10 different fields, and I don't care, because what I am only interested in is the message thing. That is one way of ensuring that you don't have some weird kind of exception. If you don't do that, it will throw an error saying I'm trying to insert underscore token, which is not a column in the table.
And in case if some field fails the validation, does it throw an error, or does it just not include it as a part of the validated array?
No. So when the validation fails, it returns a response of 413, I think.
19.
Huh?
419.
419.
You can try now one. You can try now.
Right.
Add
Status
more
code.
than.
I'll
Decrease the
basically
character.
expect a different addition field, right? And if I go back, I could have done an empty. Right. This will be a redirect because it's a HTTP, I mean, a blade file. If it was an API, then it would have returned a 419.
Okay.
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 It is returning you back because the validation message will be visible on this particular form when we display it. Okay.
Is it part of this bootcamp? How to display a validated message?
Um, it is. So what will happen is if I correct my code over here and refresh and hit, see this
Yeah.
message, the message field is required, right? This is what comes up. The error message is shown over here, and I was doing a different field, right? So it was not showing you. Okay. So yeah, to cut short, it will raise an exception. I mean, or and it will return a 419 when you are doing an API, but when it's a web request, it redirects back with the error message.
Understood.
So probably too much information for this session. But what Laravel is doing is when redirecting to that same page, it is setting a session flash session values in an array. So that's why it's able to load those errors. Yeah, that's what I know. It's been a while that I've used it. Yeah, carry on.
Okay. Now we continue with the actual storing thing. You will see an interesting little code over here which says request user, then chirps, and then create. A lot of things are happening. Let's divide them and understand what is happening. So request obviously is the request that we are getting. When the user is validated, the user object is attached to the request, and hence we are always able to reference the current authenticated user throughout the request lifecycle like this. Okay. And it is actually the user model which we had. If you remember, inside app models we had the user model. It's the similar instance. Now this chirps, right now this method doesn't exist. We will add that, but this is coming because of a relation that we will add. The ORM is coming into picture. What and a more detailed thing you will understand when we actually add the relation. But you need to understand that request user is the actual authenticated user, and on that user we will have a relation called chirps. So we are calling this method, which is again a model, and that model has a create method. To that create method we have send this validated field. Okay, we will come back to it again. And yeah, I know it can be a little confusing because a lot of things are happening. Once it is created, as the method suggests, we are going to redirect the user to a route with name chirps.index, which is our listing page. Okay. Now, so it is saying that the validations are done, but now we need to create the relationship. So what is happening is we will go into the user model, and in here we will add this method called chirps, which is a has many relationship. Let's copy this. Go to models, user, public function, has many, import. It's in the same level, so we don't need to. So what is happening? There's a method called chirps which returns a has many relation, and this is a method available with the ORM where I'm defining that it is related to the chirp model. and you can literally read it as user has many chirps,
Hmm.
and we just mention the class. Okay. Under the hood, what happened is, if you, okay, the migration is not created, and hence we first um, need to run the migration. So what is happening over here is, when we created the model, we got this inside the database migrations chirps table, right? In here, we have added two columns. One is a foreign ID called user ID, and
Hmm.
the second is the string where the actual message is. Now, this user ID needs to be filled in, right? And
Hmm.
the relation is how the framework will understand that in the chirps model, it will, I need to populate it. Okay. Last thing is something called as mass assignment protection. I'll come over here where we had the controller. So if you see, create method is taking a validated value,
Hmm.
and just imagine like the password field, right? I don't want the password field to be just randomly being populated. Okay, it will need to be hashed,
Hmm.
and hence there will always be certain kinds of fields which I don't want to be just randomly mass assigned. Hence,
Hmm.
what Laravel does is it allows us to um, define that in the model itself. So I'm saying that in this model, message is a fillable column. Okay, I go to chirp. This message field is fillable. When I'm using the create method, I can pass this value. But if there are some other fields, like let's just say is published, okay, something like that, I
Hmm.
won't be able to send a key called is published with the value 1, because the fillable property is not there. Okay.
Hmm.
Jigar bhai,
Understood.
so we have done the mass assignment, and I think now we are ready to first run our migration so that the table gets created, because so far we had our user table and stuff, but the chirps table was missing. So now we have the chirps table in the database, and as it says, let's test it out. So this is my first. I hit save. um, Now there is one thing which you need to bear with us, which is, because I have a SQLite database, I don't have a client for it. So I'll show you that it is there in the database. I'll do app models chirp all. This is a terminal based application which allows us to run quite a few commands or an actual Laravel code. And what I have done is, this particular code is basically querying the database and giving me all the chirps. Okay,
Hmm.
so we can see that if you see, there is a created ad, there's an updated ad, the user ID was populated, the ID field was populated, so it's a database entry. And if I add one more, adding one more chirp, I hit save, and if I run that again, you will see this is coming over here.
Hmm.
So with this, our create is kind of taken care of. And even in the bootcamp, they are talking about using Tinker to see the thing. But now we need to show the chirps in our UI. So let's see how we can do that. Retrieving the chirps. So what is happening is, the index route, which was showing this form, now needs to also show the users chirps. So what it is doing is it is passing another parameter over here. Let me copy that out first. I'll go to controller and inside the index.
Amitav, I have one question. So
Sure.
this ORM that we are using, does it
Hmm.
come pre-built with Laravel or is it something else?
Yes, Laravel comes with an ORM called Eloquent, and yes, I mean
Okay.
it is developed by Taylor Otwell, so it's
Okay.
not like a third-party thing. It's built in.
Hmm.
So in here, through the ORM, what are we doing? We are asking for chirps with the user relationship, so that along with the chirp, we get the user object as well.
Hmm.
We have a magic method called latest, which is basically ordering the result set by the timestamp. Okay, the latest
Hmm.
first, and then we run the get method.
Hmm.
And because this is an array, so what will happen is the view will get a variable called chirps, which will have all the chirps in that.
Hmm.
Now, how do we display that? Connecting users to chirp. Okay, we didn't have the reverse um, relationship. We said that user has chirps. In here, we need to define the other way around. So I'll go into the chirp model, add this belongs to, these are like the imports that I'm doing.
Hmm.
Updating our view. We had our form. I'll copy this markup, come over here, save. First, let's see if we are able to see it. Yes, we do. These chirps are visible. So let's understand what happened inside the view. As I said, the controller will send a variable called chirps.
Hmm.
So we have a for each loop over here. Like in React, you have a map and those kind of stuff.
Hmm.
We have a chirp. Chirps as chirp. So each chirp will be available to us. Now you will see we have chirp.user.name. How is
Hmm.
that possible? It is possible because we had loaded the relationship. If you see chirp with user, that's why the
Hmm.
name was available to us. We are on a point creating the, I mean, showing the created at in a particular format, and
Hmm.
over here we are displaying the message. That's about
Okay.
it, right? And yeah, that basically takes us to this particular UI.
Amitav, how does type safety come into picture when we are trying to pass a user into a view? So how does that view know that I should be expecting this variable? So the chirps in this case.
Right. So basically, you're saying, let's say, if it is not defined, kind of a thing,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yes, it can happen. So for each, the beauty of for each is it will not go into the loop when there are no data sets.
Hmm.
Okay, because this get query will result in zero row items, and hence the
Hmm.
for each loop will not happen. The only div which will come is this one, which is fine.
Okay. Hmm. Hmm.
But yes, obviously, if there is a chirp where there's no message, this would fail.
Hmm.
And here the idea is, because we have said that the message is a required field, ideally we should not get a chirp which doesn't have a message. Otherwise, we are in a problem. So in those cases, we can use the conditional things. If not there, then you show something else. Those kind of things. If there are fields like that.
Got it.
Um, you were also talking about some typing. How does it come to know
Hmm.
about the type? Correct?
And the fact that it should be expecting that specific variable, like chirps, करके,
Hmm.
and not something else.
So PHP, when it comes to type, I believe now we can add certain types, certain types in controller. So let's say we can say that okay, it will. So it's a return directly. So before that, we can say that it's a collection. It's a collection. We can define that it's a collection. So few methods can return a certain collection. It is still not generic. So in simple terms, PHP has started supporting types, but it is still not reached that level where we can say exactly that. Okay, now this is returning a job.
Yeah,
Am I making
it's not
sense?
as advanced as TypeScript, but yes, at least we are getting
Yeah.
quite a few things.
So
Like,
currently, all I can say is that it can return saying that okay, yeah, collection is coming, but collection of chirp is coming. It won't know. So that will take some time at the PHP level.
So
And
if you were to make
we
a typo, sorry, I go ahead.
yeah,
So
so
if you were to
to I
make a
think I
typo on line 15,
yeah.
to like if you wrote chirp or something else instead of that, would it tell you then and there as part of IntelliSense or
no,
you know?
undefined variable, it will raise an exception.
Yeah,
Okay.
even intelligence should work. So like, it should highlight something. It's
I don't know on the blade. So, IDE will give me certain kind of things. For example, if
okay.
I do validated R, it will give me
Yeah,
this. But these are very basic stuff.
yeah. And
So
also
I
at the,
think
let's say at
where
a
Kedar is
bigger
coming from is like in the React, you have, if you have defined your type system
Hmm.
in the template, if you do a chirp dot, you literally get all the
Yeah.
fields which you are able to reference,
Hmm.
right? Um,
Hmm.
that level of typing type hinting is not there as far as I know. I mean, I haven't
so
personally done that.
yeah, we have to rely on other third-party tools like PHP Stand to be able to do that. So there are then PHP Stand extensions available for IDEs like PHP Storm and VS Code that will help us autofill even the attributes.
Hmm.
That
Okay.
yeah, PHP Stand.
Okay. um, So yeah, this is there. I mean, now we will look at how the edit thing works, because
Hmm.
create and view is kind of done. So yeah, first we will have to handle the route, because initially we said that we will only handle the index and store. So we first add these two methods in our the whitelisted thing. So we'll go to web. I add the edit and update, obviously, which will result in a what
Amitav, that
happened.
should go in only, right?
Right. I think I made a mistake, right? Yes. I
Yeah.
added inside the middleware. So I add it over here and run it again. I have my edit. The this is the view where the form will be visible, and sorry, this is the one where the form will be visible, and this is the update method. Okay. So
Hmm.
let's handle that now. Um, Linking to the edit page. Okay, it's a drop down which is being added, a small UI thing. I'll just basically copy this, unless, so it's a condition. Where is it adding that? Small. Okay. With my limited HTML knowledge, I somehow add that. So it says unless the chirp created at equals to updated at, we do a edited. This is almost like the Skype or Twitter thing, that if the created and updated at don't match, it will just say that it is edited. Okay. Right now it
Hmm.
won't show because we don't have the edit option yet. And there is one more block of code which I'm going to paste after the div. So an if condition saying chirp user is auth user. So basically, if the user of the chirp is same as the current authenticated user, then this drop down will be visible. Okay. So I can see an edit over here and I can see an edit over here, just to ensure that we find one. I'm just taking the chirp and doing a user ID equals to $C save. I basically updated the value and it would fail because I don't have two users. Too bad. I'll have to okay. So just leave it at that. Basically, if it is not the current logged in user, it will not show this particular thing. Okay. Okay. We don't have this page. Let's build that. Create the edit form. So inside views, chirps, edit.blade.php. This is a file that I will need to create. Resource, chirps, and I'll simply copy this. Here there are certain things to look for. This is the form, post action. We have already seen this. This is the route. The route, because it's an update route, it is taking one more parameter, which is the chirp. Okay, that thing will be available. Then we have our typical CSRF field, the message, and then the button. And if I want to cancel, let's quickly see.
Amitav, in the form, we say it's a post method, but on line 5, it's a patch method.
Right. Okay, that's a good catch. I forgot to explain this. Now, in a form thing, there is only one method available, which is post. So we need to fake the method when we are submitting a form to a resourceful controller. So this method is a way to fake another post request and say that it's actually a patch.
Okay.
Because if you are doing through Postman or stuff like that, you have that control, of saying, okay, it's a patch request, it's a put request, or it's a delete request. But in a form, we don't have that ability. I can't do a delete or a patch over here. So that's why we have a thicker kind of a thing.
It's a Laravel thing or a Blade thing.
Yeah.
So in the network tab, if we were to check, what kind of request would that be? Post or a patch?
It will be a post.
Okay.
In the network tab, it will be a post.
Can you confirm that? I think it will be a patch.
I'll need to first render the form. So creating the controller with the view, right? So I'll go to the edit over here, and I need to add the policy as well. I'll do that in a bit. Just a second. Okay. Hold on to this line for now so that I can show you the thing. Just to confirm the network tab thing. We are on all, and if I update, it's a request method post. Is it visible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. The payload will have a underscore method called patch.
Okay.
Okay, so that would be part of the form data.
Yes.
Okay, so the browser itself doesn't support patch.
Patch.
Is it like that?
I don't know if we can say it's the browser, but at least the form tag doesn't support it. So there is no way for us to tell the controller that it's a put request. Let me put it that way. If it is an API request, then we have multiple ways to tell the exact verb, but in the form we don't have, so the method is required.
Got it. Thank you. You can continue.
Now we need to okay, I'll uncomment this, the authorized thing, and we will come to it. There are some changes in, okay, no, not changes, but rather update the update method with this code. Do I need to import anything? No. This will return a view, although these are not mandatory, I think, but I'll just still add that as best practice. Update returns a redirect response. Yes, redirect that response. Eliminate HTTP should be. All right. First, this. So, authorize is a function which will allow us to tell whether this user has the ability to update or not, and we pass the chirp. Okay, how it is happening, we will come to that, but basically we are checking that. If it is not possible, then it will return a unauthorized, it will be a 403 if I'm not wrong, unauthorized access, or 401, no, 403 unauthorized access. Similarly, in here we are calling the authorize method to check whether this chirp can be updated or not. The logic behind it, we will come to it. It is explained over here. So the authorization. So what happens is Laravel allows us out of the box to create create something called policy, and a policy can be attached to a model, right? I can create a policy like this. PHP artisan make policy. Till this point, it is, we have seen quite a few things. We are creating a policy called chirp policy, okay, and it is linked to the chirp model. This is what is happening in the command. Now, if I go to my code editor, inside the policies, I have this. So it has quite a few methods like view any. View any is basically determine whether the user can view any model. Determine whether the user can view the model, one specific one. Create, update, and delete, restore, and force delete. These are the different methods on which we can attach a policy. We go to the documentation. Now for update, we just add this. So the chirp user, it is testing whether the chirp user is this $user or not. Okay. The only thing which I'm worried about is, okay, yeah. So edit, and this is kind of working. Okay. And for some reason, if I do a return false, it says 403, this action is unauthenticated, right? This is how the policy will typically work for you. Right. So now we are coming to the last section, but before that, I think one small little thing is, now you can see this one says edited because that if condition is now being fulfilled. Okay. Now the last method we add, which is inside the web.php only destroy. We will see this again, obviously, because we can do PHP artisan route list. We have our delete method over here, and The code is quite straightforward. Inside the controller, we first do the authorize. We check whether we are able to delete it or not. Then we run the delete method on the model, redirect the user to the index page. And it's a redirect response. So again, I'll just add that. Now, how do we call that? Okay, first they are doing the update. The policy thing. Return this update user chirp. Okay, yeah. So the logic over here is, the delete. The ability of delete will be very similar to update. A user who is able to delete will be able to update, and a user who has the ability to update should ideally be able to delete as well. With that assumption, what it is doing is it is calling the update function and returning whether it is true or false. So we are basically reusing the policy, nothing else. It's on the delete. So we change the logic here, and the next one also automatically updates itself. And we show the delete thing where in the drop down, right? Let me find that out. This is it. What again, if you see, right, this is actually a form, a post request to the destroy URL with a spoof method for delete. And because it's a post request, it's actually making a JavaScript form submit. That link, on click of it, this form is getting submitted. Even the logout handles a similar thing, because we actually need to make a post request. Okay, why didn't it come through? I don't see the delete thing. It's the mobile version, if I'm not wrong. I completely no, this is fine. What happened? So I have a drop down method edit.
Should it be inside of the slot?
Policy.
It should be inside of the slot, I think.
Slot, no? Yes. So fine. This is the mistake that I did, which is it should have been inside the slot. So now I'll delete. Delete is available, so I'll just delete this, and it's gone.
Cool.
Right? Yeah, that's about it. I think the notification and events is a big enough concept to understand. So we may not be able to cover it in this video. Maybe sometime else. But yeah, that's generally what Bootcamp is giving you in terms of this chirp application.
So, how was the learning session? Did you actually understand? Were you able to
Yes, so
get along with Amitav?
Yeah, I was able to follow along. Like Amitav, I was able to resonate with his pace. And secondly, like since this was my first impression of PHP or Laravel, it's quite clear that the developer experience in this whole ecosystem is top notch. Like all the boilerplate code and mundane tasks has been taken care for you by the framework itself. So you can make yourself
get into the business logic part right away.
Exactly. And I also like the boilerplate that it generates when you scaffold an app using the artisan command. So the folder structure, all the directories and all are taken care of. So yeah, I'm quite impressed with it.
Great. So I hope you obviously you said you learned the ecosystem, and I really hope that you are able to make some interesting applications and show us in future.
Yes.
Yeah, and at some point, like if time permits, we can definitely talk about the notification and the events thing, because it in itself is a
Hmm.
very uh, interesting concept and a very nice architecture when we are creating a scalable application, right? So yeah,
Hmm.
let's see
So
if we can plan that out.
so what we can do next time is we can pick one topic like probably notification and probably do the similar session and
Hmm.
record the same, and like you probably this what we are recording is also helpful to others. Yeah.
Yeah,
And also, I'd love to see how we can use this to make a single page application using inertia.
right.
Hmm.
Definitely, let's target that as well, because there is also a bigger audience, who are very keen to know how the JavaScript ecosystem can come in. So I completely
Hmm.
understand.
Okay.
Cool.
All right
Thank
then.
you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Jigar and Amitav. Yeah.
Chalo. Bye bye.
Yes.
Yep. Bye.
Bye bye. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Yeah.